There is nothing worse than untapped potentials. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely the place for you. Hey everybody, welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I'm your host, Ashely, and today we get a chance to talk to coach and podcaster Ashely Fillmore. You guys, her story is so inspirational. You're going to be just moved in so many different ways. Ashely, thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to dive into everything. But why don't you first start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? How are you showing up in the world? Like, what lights your soul on fire these days?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, my name is Ashely. I'm a podcaster. I also run a successful online coaching company. I specialize in sustainable body transformation, helping women reach their goals, break down any barriers that have been holding them back. And my expertise is in hormonal and metabolic health for women. So we really go about things in a holistic way, taking a look at their hormones, their metabolism, and specifically in the women that are about 35 plus, or who I help focus in on just becoming the healthiest version of themselves as they continue to transform in life and things look a lot different than it did in their 20s or even early 30s. And so, yeah, that's what I do, and I love it. And yeah,
Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast, it's just I love it. It's like my third baby. I'm a mom too. I have two girls, 7 and 4 years old. And I will say podcasting is like the third thing that I'm pouring all of my energy and time into. I absolutely love it. So on my podcast, it is a good dose of hormones, metabolism, all of the education, training, as well as just motherhood, being an entrepreneur, what it takes to really reach your goals. I do a lot of work with mindset as well, because I know how impactful it has been for me to work on my mindset, build my confidence, and work through a lot of the things I know we're going to chat about today, but work through a lot of the challenges that I've had to overcome, and
Great.
seeing how much it parallels with body transformation, building and starting a company, and all of those great things. So we talk about all of that on my podcast.
I love that. And, transformation is something that you're really passionate about because you've transformed yourself. And I want to just dive into all of that in just a moment. But first, I want to just mention that you also said that how important mindset is. And I always joke that we don't have business problems, we have personal problems that we bring into our business, right? And I think it's the same with our bodies. I think that oftentimes it's our mindset and the subconscious belief systems and the habits that we're not even aware of that impact what we put in our mouths or the way that we move our body, or our stress can impact our hormones, as you know. And so there's so many things that have to do with our mind, that if we can get a handle on our mindset and what happens between our ears, it can be the linchpin, the domino effect in all the different aspects of our lives, which is why I feel so passionate, just like you do, of transforming our mindset, because there's no stopping us what we can do with ourselves and our businesses and our bodies and all the things, if we can really start to get a handle on what's going on between our ears.
I totally agree. And one of the things that I always preach is that your thoughts become your actions. Your actions is what's going to equal the outcome or the result. And
Yes.
when you really set with that, you realize that it starts with your mind and what you're telling yourself every single day. And this could be related to your health and fitness goals. This could be related to being a great mom or wife, or building your company.
Yeah.
And so it's been really interesting to see the correlation with all of it when it comes to your health and fitness, life, and then building a company as well, how much your mindset really does impact how you show up and your ability to do the things that you need to do to accomplish that result.
Well, let's dive into your transformation story because I think that one of the things that really stood out to you when we've met in the past is how much you had to overcome in order to be the successful mompreneur that you are today. So why don't you give us some insight, Ashley, on what your life experiences have been like and how you kind of were able to kind of get past all of those to be who you are today?
Yeah, yeah. So I love the name of your podcast, and it really makes me think a lot of my life and a lot of the things that I have had to overcome. And so, just like with all of us, life has so many twists and turns. And, normally what we worry about happening, at least I feel like this is true, doesn't usually happen. It's kind of those unexpected things that rock our worlds, right?
Right,
It's
right.
almost like we couldn't prepare for them.
Mhm.
I'm a planner. I've always had a plan B, a plan C, and sometimes even a plan D. But I will say that when life has happened to me, it's for the things that when it really rocks my world that I didn't even know were coming my way. And it's like, whoa, okay, here we are now. And what am I going to do? So my journey really started when I was younger. My mom was a single mom. She worked incredibly hard. She had three jobs, and I'm talking, gas station, Waffle House, which was one of my first fast food restaurants. I used to go there and eat dinner, Hardee's. I mean, just fast food. She barely made minimum wage. She would clean houses on the side, and she really hustled. And you can say that a lot of her choices put her in the environment and in the situations she was in, but she eventually hit a point where she wanted to get out, but she didn't know how to do it.
Yeah,
And so I don't know, for your audience listening in right now, or even for you, if there's been a moment in your life where you're just so unhappy, but you just don't know what to
yeah,
do, you
yeah.
don't know how to take that next step, or you just don't have the resources.
Right.
So looking back, there was a lack of resources, there was a lack of knowing what to do. So she was trapped in this very vicious cycle.
Mhm.
I'm a mom, and I know how hard it is now to raise my children, make sure they have everything they need, take care of myself, run my business, be a great wife, keep dinner on the table every night. And so life really got the best of her. Financially, she was struggling. She was a single mother. My father chose to have nothing to do with me. He would never show up when it was his turn to have me on the weekend. He never paid child support. She was really just doing it on her own. A side effect to that was her turning to drugs for some relief, to take the edge off, to make it a little easier to cope. And unfortunately, that became a habit. And then that drug addiction got the best of her. And when I was 15 years old, she ended up overdosing and passing away. In addition to just financially struggling, she was also with a lot of very abusive men. She did not see her worth looking back. She did not have the confidence in herself to know that she was worthy and did not deserve to be mentally or physically, verbally abused by a man. And she just really settled for less. And I think that, just living that life with her and really reflecting back, she was trapped. She didn't know where to turn. She had no financial relief. She was already on welfare and food stamps and all of the government assistance. She was going from abusive relationship to abusive relationship. And I think that she was just looking for some relief. And so she turned to drugs and alcohol. And I think by the time she realized it was a problem, it was way too far gone. And I don't know if you've heard stories about that, but a lot of times, like when you're in the thick of it, it's like, whoa, okay, I really have a problem, but I also can't just stop.
Right.
And that's where we were with her. It was me at 15 years old, just a few days before she passed away, looking at her and saying, we cannot continue to live this way. You're not coming home. I'm home by myself for weeks and days, with no one here. I School's starting in a week and I don't have any new school clothes yet. And, I'm also a 15-year-old teenage girl, if you can imagine the hormones and all of
Yeah.
that. I knew my life was really different, and I also had a lot of anger towards her for living a different life and struggling and not being able to participate in school events or sports or wear nice clothes. So it's kind of like feeling bad for her, but also feeling angry because
Right.
that was my mother. And I felt like in the thick of the addiction that I was the one being the mother.
Right.
And there was anger and resentment and
Yeah.
frustration. Like, why are you not doing better right now? And so at 15, she passed away. I think it was my second or third day of 10th grade. And so I was sitting in class and I knew that something really bad happened. And it's one of those really, really strange feelings you get. And I'll still get them for other things in life. It's like the tone, the way someone's facial expressions are, just the way they're looking. You're like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
With my kids, I can sense it from a mile away. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's wrong? Something's wrong. What's going on? Or your husband or anything. I just knew something was wrong. And so obviously I knew what my mom was doing, how addiction was really taking over. We were just arguing about this a couple of days before. She didn't come home the night. I woke up for school. She wasn't home that morning. I rolled my eyes and thought, here we go again. Here's another day. So as always, really from the age of 7 or 8, I would get myself up, get myself ready, figure out how to eat or not eat at all. I just took care of myself. I mean, never had the opportunity to be a child and just enjoy being a kid with an imagination and a free spirit and all of that. And, anyways, I just got up and said, well, she's not home again. But after I got into school and the guidance counselor and police officer actually came to my PE class, I knew that something really bad was wrong. And I felt like something was kind of stewing anyways, because the last bit of her addiction, it was really bad. Like, I remember a lot of arguments. I remember a lot of nights that she wasn't home. I remember just more, our power getting cut off more frequently and things like that. And so it's almost like, in a sense, like I didn't know that was going to happen, but I also felt like there wasn't going to be a good outcome. And that's literally when my whole entire world changed. I was 15 years old. Mother passed away, no siblings, no father. I was just a child with, a lot of, I guess you can say, in a sense, life experience, because I had to grow up so fast. But also, I didn't really have the capacity, if you could imagine that, to take on living and figuring out life. And so I I had to literally pick myself up off the ground. And for the last, gosh, almost here before too many more years, it'll be 20 years, 17, 18 years now. I have been continuously every single day working incredibly hard to make a better life for myself and now for my children.
And what made you decide, because I do believe that it's a decision, to
Yes.
make your life something that was different than the spiral effect that you saw with your mom, because I think that sometimes those generational patterns repeat themselves, right? So what made you, or what was inside of you, that basically chose a different ending to your choose your own adventure story?
Right. You're exactly right. We all have a choice. That can be a very empowering feeling, or it can be intimidating
Yeah.
and make you want to crumble.
Yeah.
There's definitely two sides to that card. Well, I knew from day one, I had no one to blame, no one to fall back on, no victim. I could play the victim, but it wasn't going to serve me because
Right.
there was literally no one there to listen. And so I had grandparents. They took me in for a couple of years until I could get through high school. And then I went out on my own. My grandparents also, didn't have a lot of resources. So there was only so much they could do for me. So I was 15 and a half. I started working and I started to do a lot for myself at that point in my life. But you're right. There was a really big choice that I had to make. So, really, to be honest with you, from 10th grade to 12th grade in high school, I pretty much just survived. 10th grade was just, oh man, such an emotional roller coaster,
Yeah.
dealing with the grief of losing my mother, and trying to get through school and not be held back a year and catch up with that. And then I remember really getting into 12th grade and realizing this is it. High school's almost over. College is next. This is the next move that you're going to have to make. There was no other path for me to secure a future. And that is probably when I did make my first choice. which is one of many choices I had to make to get to where I am today. And I will say the choice was as simple as this. There's two paths, and it is like this, I feel like, with everything.
Yeah.
I could choose
Mhm.
to do nothing,
Mhm.
to give up,
Mhm.
to be like my mom and work similar. I knew that was going to be the journey if I chose that path. Work, whatever job I could find, make minimum wage, struggle to get by. I knew that life so well that that alone lit a fire under my bottom that literally made me say, I will do anything to not live in misery, suffering, and pain as she did. And she made choices, good, bad, however you want to look at them, good in having me, but bad with some of her life choices. And there were consequences to that. And by the time she realized it was a problem, she could not change. And when you live a life like that, you're right. You can just say, you know what? This is it. The world has been mean to me. I'm giving up. This is going to be my journey. And then you follow a similar trend to that
Right.
parent or that family member.
Yeah.
But I said, no, I am going to make another path for myself. If you can choose to not do anything, you can also choose to do something. You
Right.
don't have to have everything planned out. You don't need to know the full plan. You don't have to have everything. Even though I'm a planner now, I even still remind myself you don't have to know every single next step, have every chapter written out. All I knew is that I am not going to choose that path. So, what's the next step that I need to take right now to secure a better future for myself? Initially, it was college. So, it was okay, what do I need to do to get into college? I'm not going to worry about a job. I'm not going to worry about my salary. I'm not going to worry about where I'm going to be. I'm just going to worry about what do I need to do right now to get into college? And so that's what I did. I doubled down. I got my grades to a place where I could get into school. And then my next thought was, is what profession can I do and make money? Something. I knew at that time even certain people were going into college and living locally where I lived, and unfortunately, they couldn't find work. And so they would move back in with their parents. And I knew that I didn't have that fallback. So my next thought was, is what field can I go into where I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to end up with a job because I had no one to fall back on.
Right.
And so to answer your question, I made a big choice in choosing a different path because playing the victim was not serving me and was not going to serve me if I wanted to make a better life for myself. I had to take massive responsibility for my outcomes,
Yeah.
which is incredibly hard to do because you have no one to fall back on or blame if it doesn't work out.
Right. And I think that that's one of the things that really inspired me to start this podcast, honestly, is that when I interviewed successful people, when I talked to successful people, when I listened to podcasts and read books, the common theme that I noticed in all of them was that successful people choose not to stay victims to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. And I think that we are not, that we're not responsible for what happens to us, but we're responsible for what we do with it. And I think that so many people can blame their upbringing, blame their circumstances, blame things that prevent them from stepping into the life that they're designed to live or that they can live, and they choose to kind of to stay put in that victim cycle. And I think that it's really powerful when we choose to stand up and get out of that. And one of the things that I find fascinating about your story too that I wanted to ask you about, Ashley, is you didn't have anyone necessarily cheering you on saying like, hey, you got this, you can do this. I mean, I've talked to a lot of my colleagues at work where they're doctors, and their dad was a doctor and their grandpa was a doctor, and everybody just assumed that they would become a doctor and they would um you know create this beautiful path for them. I didn't have that. Like, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't know what I was capable of, right? And so I think that it's always fascinating when we have conversations with people that don't have the, hey, you can do this, this is how you do it. We have to kind of figure it out, right?
Right. You do. You have to figure it out and you have to believe in yourself. And at first, you may have to fake it until you can finally truly start to see the proof that you're going to
Yeah.
do what you're going to reach that goal. You're going to accomplish that thing.
Right.
There's not always that instant gratification where maybe one action you take equals some big result or
Right.
outcome.
Right.
Sometimes it's like planting that seed. You water it, and nothing happens, and nothing happens. And, you kind of get discouraged. Maybe did you plant it wrong? Is the flower ever going to bloom? And then finally, one day you go outside and you're like, wow, look, here it is. All along, all of that watering I was doing was paying off. And the same thing is true too when you don't have people cheering you on, you have to become your own cheerleader. You have to believe in yourself. And I know that we hear this, and I used to roll my eyes and think, oh my God, here we go again. Believe in yourself and, blah, blah, blah. But yes, you really do. And those are things in my life. So from saying, okay, next is college. Then what? Then what am I going to do? Okay, I started a job that I loved. And, I remember thinking, wow, this is amazing. At that point, I was making good money for, where I came from. I was doing fabulous. I was the first person to go to college. I was the first person to have a quote, real job. And it was just such a great feeling. But I also remember there's been many steps since that initial, hey, I can choose my path forward, where I had to make that choice again, which was when I went from corporate America into becoming an entrepreneur, which was equally just as scary as going to college and putting myself through college and working multiple jobs to get through college. And then after that, starting that first full time job and loving it and putting everything I had into it, and then 12 weeks pregnant, realizing with several things that happened, months before that and years before that, even it was leading up to it, that this is not for me anymore. And I continued to try and push that down. Oh, it's just me. It's a bad day. It's a bad month. Or things are going to get better and this will change. Or, oh, maybe he'll come around, referring to my boss. And then finally, I remember, nothing changed and things only got worse for me. And I had to make that next scary choice and that decision to either stay there and stay miserable or take that scary next leap to get unstuck, because I was very stuck at that point, and go into the unknown world of becoming an entrepreneur and starting a company and all of the things that, comes along with that journey.
Yeah, and so what you said was that we are given these really difficult choices throughout our lives, right? And we can either choose to stay where we're at and stay stuck, or we can choose to take the risk and to take the leap. And I think that that was one of a really big turning point for me. So when I was in my corporate job, I was unhappy for a period of time. And I remember applying for another job and getting offered the job, and I decided to turn it down. And it was that moment where I was just figuring out that I was choosing to be there every day. I chose to turn down that other job. No one was holding a gun to my head. This was my decision, right? And I think that what we recognize is that staying where we're at or doing something different, they're both choices. And so I think really just recognizing that and saying, okay, I'm going to own this choice for this season. But then oftentimes, like you and I both, we got into this place where you're like, I can't choose to be here any longer. And I'm ready
Mhm.
to take that next big decision and go out into the unknown. And just like you said, sometimes it's hard, isn't it? Sometimes it's uneasy, sometimes it's scary. And just because we make
Yeah.
those bold choices and those brave choices doesn't necessarily mean that it's all going to be a bed of roses either.
Exactly. And like you said, not making a choice is also a choice. Choosing to stay the same is something you're choosing to do.
Right.
And I
Right.
don't mean that in an insensitive way, but
No.
it's a choice. I mean, I see it every day, even with the work that I do now.
Yep.
I will hear women talk to me face to face or Zoom to Zoom like
Right.
this,
Right.
and
Right.
they're desperately needing help,
Yeah.
and they feel horrible. Their health is deteriorating. They're, lacking intimacy with their partners. They don't have a great relationship with their kids because they don't feel good. They're ashamed, they're embarrassed of where they are.
Mhm.
And in my opinion, when you hit that point, it could be with your career too, equally. I'm unhappy at work. I don't like what I'm doing. I'm going in every day. My energy's off. My vibes are low. In that moment, in those moments, you can make a choice. Is this what you want for yourself? And if the answer is no, the next thing is choosing something different, which means taking scary action, doing things differently because you're not happy with where you are. So we're going to have to change it up
Yeah.
and be willing to go into the unknown. And yes, it is a risk. There's always a possibility that something could go wrong. But the question really becomes is, do you want to stay comfortable and miserable, or do you want to take a risk
Yeah.
and lose nothing really? And there's a higher percentage that you're going to come out ahead and significantly more happier, living a fulfilled life, feeling great, and doing things that fill your cup every day.
100%. I think that I've heard somebody say this once, that it should be called the uncomfortable zone, uncomfort zone, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
it's not that it's comfortable, it's that it's familiar and it's better than
Yes.
the unknown. But the unknown oftentimes will bring us the greatest rewards. And I think that sometimes, too, in my experience, it's not just the really big, scary steps that we have to take next. I love how you said that. You're like, okay, well, what is the next step I can take? Well, the next step is I could figure out how to get into college, right? So one of the turning points in my life was that I was, living my quote unquote dream job, doing everything that I thought I would love, and I was given an opportunity to be a partner in a small online business. I didn't even realize that it was what I needed because it gave me a creative outlet that I wasn't getting at work. And all of a sudden, I started to come alive again. Now, it was just
Mhm.
a little side gig, but it was something that I was doing, a choice that I made that shook me up a little bit, that allowed for me to have another way for me to use my brain. And you know what? I became a better mom. I became a better friend because I was happy again. I was feeling
Mhm.
fulfilled. I was using my creativity that I hadn't been using at work as much as I wanted to. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm going to quit my job and start a business. It can literally be, what is something new? Can it be hiring a fitness coach? Could it be starting a workout routine? Can it be hiring a life coach? Maybe it's starting a side gig, or maybe it's starting a new hobby, right? But it's just changing up where we're at.
Exactly. And like you said, and adding on to that, what can you do today that's going to help you become a
Yeah.
happier and healthier version of yourself?
Yeah.
Like you said, it doesn't have to be starting a business. Some people have no desire to start their own company, but we all want to feel good, to have a great quality of life, to enjoy spending time with the people we love, and we want to feel confident and happy with what
Yeah.
we're doing in our life, no matter if it's working for someone else, working for yourself, feeling confident when you walk into the office or feeling confident when you're doing a podcast interview like this. You deserve to feel your best and be fulfilled in life, and that's really what it's all about. And I think our paths are very similar. You realize that, in corporate America, you weren't as fulfilled in your position. So this now what you're doing, starting your own business, podcasting, is filling your cup and you're happy. And it's probably brought you so much joy to finally be stepping into what you really supposed to feel so right when you do that. Same with me. I reached a point to where it wasn't serving me. So starting my own business, and literally it went from, okay, I want to start my own business. What's the next step? Because just like with college, thinking about scaling a company, growing a company, social media, marketing, programs, products, websites, all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm even overwhelmed saying that. It was too much. So it was, what's the next thing I need to do?
Yeah.
What's the next thing? And I also think when it comes to improving your health, you don't have to figure out every piece of the puzzle. What's the next step? Like you said, maybe it's hiring that coach, starting a workout program, drinking more water. It doesn't have to be massive, but taking action, because small baby steps will literally yield big results over time.
Oh my gosh. And I think that one of the things that you made me think of is that oftentimes people wait to have confidence before they start something. Whereas actually, it's the other way around. When we get into action, the action is going to create the confidence. And then we'll have the confidence then to do the next small action, which is going to create more confidence. And so we're actually giving ourselves a positive spiral upward when we just simply take small actions. So I love what you're saying. Like, what is the next step? And if you can just ask yourself, the next right step is, you can literally be moving forward. And all of a sudden you look back and you're like, holy cow, look how far I've gone, and look at the confidence that I've built along the way, instead of, waiting till I'm ready, because ready is a myth sometimes, don't you think?
Right. I totally agree. I don't think there's ever the perfect time, ever the perfect season. There's
Yeah,
always something.
yeah,
There's never, and that was kind of where I was too with my podcast, which was the next scary thing for me.
yeah,
I just caught myself, even though I'm a big action taker, I hit a
yeah,
point where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy with my business. I have all these other things going on, and oh, I'm a mom, and things are busy with the kids, and I realized like it was a whole year that went by and I never started my podcast. And I remember, thinking, wow, it's been a year. And so I literally had to leap before I was ready. I had
yes,
a million and one reasons not to do it, but I had to say, okay, this is it. I really need to leap before I am ready. And so you're right. It's just doing that next thing. And that alone is going to push you forward. You're taking action, which is
yes,
what's really going to set you up for success. And I did also want to comment to your comment about building your confidence.
yeah,
I've always believed that building confidence, if you're going to build your confidence through taking action, through getting in reps. You're going to prove to yourself that you can do it. The
yeah,
only way to do that is to take action, and then the confidence will continue to grow. I had zero confidence when I started. Zero. Like you said, when I started my business, I had a ton of baggage that I brought into it. Just, from my life growing up and not having confidence at times and low self esteem. And I really had to work through that. Over the years, my confidence has increased, not for superficial reasons, more for simply taking action and showing myself what is possible when I literally bet on me and put the money on me that, hey, I'm going to put all my eggs in one hat that I'm going to be successful and do this.
oh my gosh, I have goosebumps. Like, what an inspiration you are, Ashley. This has been so much fun. As we wrap up our conversation, because the two of us like could literally talk all day, obviously. What would
Yeah.
you love to add to the conversation that we haven't already had a chance to discuss, if there's anything?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, if you're listening into this, I know sometimes it can feel like a lot. It can feel really overwhelming,
Mhm. Yeah,
and especially if you feel like you haven't even started, whatever it may be. Or maybe sometimes even when you hear some of the things we're talking about, it can be a trigger because it may make you feel like, wow, I'm not showing up for myself, either in my career, or yes, I'm unhappy, or I'm not happy with my physical health. The one thing that I want to leave you with is, you don't massive action. Sometimes we think that means doing something over the top, but really it could simply be you doing, as we've talked about throughout this episode, just one thing to push the dial in the right direction. So if you feel overwhelmed, or you're thinking, wow, this is a lot, just really pausing and saying, okay, what is my goal? Where do I want to end up? Have that goal in mind, but then step away from the bigger picture and focus in on that next thing you can do.
yeah,
And if you don't know, ask for help.
yeah.
If you don't know, ask someone that's done it. Ask someone that's been there already. That could be a coach, a mentor, a friend.
Right.
If you're, yeah, and reaching out and saying, hey, I'm really inspired by your story. I'm really inspired by your message or your podcast. I don't know what to do, but here's what I want to do. It sounds like you know a lot about this topic. Could you tell me where I need to start? Right there. That's all you need to do.
I love that so much. And just like you had this passion to help people have the transformations in their body, I have this passion to help them have the transformation in their business. And I think that, what beautiful words that you had for everybody who's listening. Like, think about what it is that you want. reach out to somebody that you know could help you just take that next step, the next small step. Oh my gosh, I love that. You guys, if you loved this episode as much as I did, make sure that you hit subscribe and leave a review. Let us know exactly what your favorite part of this conversation was. And as always, I love it, love it, love it when you guys share this out on social media and tag us because it's so much fun for us to interact with you. And as always, I am going to ask Ashely right now to think of a question that we all can ponder that's going to help us move from where we are to where we want to be. So, Ashely, what kind of question would you want us to be thinking about that's going to move us forward?
So, what is one action that you can take right now that's going to push you one step closer to your goal?
I love it. And maybe that one action, you guys, is to check out the show notes and find out ways that you can follow or possibly work with Ashely. So make sure that you're checking out the show notes for all of the goodies. And Ashely, thank you so much for being here today. You are such an inspiration. You guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Untucked podcast. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.